So, guys, I've been playing Wild Hearts. And, yeah, it's really good. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow hunters all! Oh, this is exciting! First and foremost, a huge thank you to EA for inviting us to check out a very early and therefore still sometimes buggy and quirky, but still entirely fun and functional build of Wild Hearts so we can get a little bit of a taste of what's to come and if it really does scratch that Monster Hunter itch. And I'll be real with you. I went into this full-on neutral.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Open-minded and hoping to, well, you know, be blown away because competition is only a good thing in what I hope is now this budding niche genre of action RPG centered around well-made combat, big, coolly designed, well-thought-out monsters in a loot, craft, and get better, where the chief method of progression is your own ability as a player and a hunter. And ultimately, to jump ahead, ladies and gentlemen, Wild Hearts has impressed me immensely. Bottom line, it's good.
It's good. It's good.
It's fun, much more importantly, and perhaps even more importantly in that, yeah, it feels like a Monster Hunter game. But the key I want to stress is it doesn't feel like a Monster Hunter game copying Monster Hunter. It has its uniqueness. It has a core that has been well thought out that actually is genuinely engaging to, well, interact with and be a part of. The world is beautiful and intriguing to explore. The kimono, the monster designs, the plant hybrid, their attacks, the way that they move and operate feels animalistic, and it feels very deliberate in a proper, you know, battle of living thing versus living thing. You hunter versus them creature, as opposed to, you know, player mashing against a video game boss. That is nice to see. The way the Karakuri actually interact, both from a out-of-combat base-building traversal perspective and an in-combat moment-to-moment tools that you can leverage against the foe in a way that uniquely benefits you against that unique kimono, is also really well done and not at all intrusive feeling like I was expecting. It flows very naturally, integrated within the weapon movesets themselves. And the weapon movesets themselves, yeah, they are very, very fun. To give a quick example, the actual animations and the way it feels and the way it looks is on point. This little aerial attack on the bow, the fact that your hunter puts his feet planted on the bow so he can then pull back with all his strength with both arms to do a colossal aerial shot, that is the kind of thing that you want to see. It would be so easy to do a generic, you know, pull back normal aerial shot. You know, that's whatever, that's fine. But to actually go to the length of, yeah, we're gonna do this bow foot plant power aerial backflip explosion shot, you know, that is really compelling. It really is. And in terms of how it actually feels to use the weapons against the kimono the monsters, it has that kind of oomph that we were hoping. It's not got as much oomph as Monster Hunter, and at this early stage in this early build that isn't fully complete and fully smoothed out, definitely Monster Hunter Combat has a lot more going for it. But it is not that floaty, wishy-washy phase through the monster, you know, kind of nothing, kind of just vanilla that we were perhaps worried it would be. There is something here. It is satisfying to use the weapons, it is meaningful to hit the monsters, there is part breaks everywhere, most of which you can carve. It's not just tails, which you can cut off, but you can also chip off horns and spikes and tusks, and there is one monster who you can break off its beard. Its literal leafy beard, and then carve its leafy beard. That's just insulting to the poor thing. Oh, And you have raw flinches, you of course have weight to the attacks. There is attention to detail that I didn't think would be there that is really enthusing me to see. It's the kind of little bits, little touches that really kind of make me think that the developers know what you're expecting when you go into a game like this. Even down to the old classic of, oh, I'm going to fire my most powerful attack at the monster? It would sure be a shame if one random wild small monster was to investigate the situation and block the attack.
Hey guys, how you doing? Oh, you're firing. Oh! Why?
But then look how this continues. The King Tusk readies his charge, a strong telegraph. It's easy to read and learn the monsters, and it is satisfying to overcome them. You build this wall, which then blasts and explodes it backwards into the air, landing. You then have this opportunity to actually get some damage in from this down, and it just feels really smooth, you know, and that's really, really important. Of course, there is the kind of crafting you would expect, upgrading your gear and armor that visually is different from the monsters that you slay, and there's a lot going on there. And there is, in total, going to be 8 weapons, but I can't show you or say much more than that at this current stage. But no, there's some really compelling archetypes and movesets that is definitely worth looking forward to. However, what I can show you is the bow, which is essentially if Dragon Piercer was the entire weapon. You have this rain of arrows, and you can fire the bow sideways as one of the 2 modes, and every shot from that mode leaves a little glowing point, like a worm stake in the kimono, and then you switch to the vertical holding the bow mode, which you can then power up a couple times to do a big power shot, which will then trigger and explode all of the little glowing lines that you fired into it from the horizontal mode, and that flows back and forth really, really well. We've also got the Parasol, which is counter the weapon. Imagine insect glaive, but without the kinsect. You're in the air a lot. You can counter at any point to reset your time and keep going through your combo, staying in the air just constantly for as long as you have stamina. It's very, very interesting and not at all what I expected from that weapon. Of course, we have the standard Katana as well, which is still quite cool. You do combos with the sheath as if it was dual blades. You have the whip sword ultra mode that you can stay in for a while as long as the bar lasts, and that gives you some excessive range and strength to wield against the monster, and basically they really don't feel like copies or clones. I know I'm giving you comparable examples in Monster Hunter, but they're basically as close as I can kind of tell you to get the gist, but there's nothing that so far comes across as just a straight rip-off, unless you're going to say stuff like, I don't know, you press a button and you carve the monster, but that's more a staple of a hunting type genre than I would say literally Monster Hunter. Though, that said, there is clear inspiration here, because of course there is. Monster Hunter is the granddaddy, it is the masterpiece, it is the best. It would be foolish to not take and draw concepts from it, but then to elaborate and take them in a different direction, which certainly has been done here, even just down to the plant hybrid infused with all of the creatures. There's a lot of endemic life around the place, a lot of it you can capture to put in your pocket as materials, which is nice to store for later, and there is obviously ore veins and such and random plants to get the kind of stuff you would expect to see in a game like this. And one thing that I think is really cool as a concept is, you know how in Monster Hunter you find an area of the map and it pops up and it's like, this would be a great idea for a camp here, and then you go hand in the materials and then it becomes a camp. In Wild Hearts, essentially, you just decide wherever on the map is a good place for a camp, and then you literally build one yourself with the dragon Karakuri. You place down a forge, you place down a tent, which becomes a respawn and fast travel point. You can place a radar tower, which will track nearby kimono for you to go hunt. You can place down aesthetic things like a sign to mark the area. There is a fire to do some cooking, though the cooking system is something that for now will remain mysterious, and there is a lot of fun in that. You can really design bases, but the thing is, if you place it in the middle of a field where you end up fighting a kimono and they run through your base, they're going to destroy it all and you'll have to rebuild it, which is very visceral to see. And in fact, the environment does get destroyed and altered by the kimono as you fight. Buildings fall down, pillars break, and you do kind of feel the weight of these creatures. That said, of course, it's not entirely sunshine, rainbows, and roses. There is a few gripes, a few bits that I think will hold it back, if not adjusted. So I have 3 chief criticisms which I want to kind of expand on. The first is difficulty. This one could entirely be a personal thing. Of course, I have a lot of experience in both action RPGs, in Monster Hunter. I kind of got the concept, picked it up pretty quickly, and sort of walked over all of the monsters. But you have to understand that this is the first, like, couple hours of the game. This is the tutorial. It's like fighting the Great Jagras in World, right? So you're not expecting to be bowled over, but I certainly wasn't getting bowled over as much as I would like, especially when the kimono you fight initially are as big and impressive as something like King Tusk. We will see how they develop later in the game, gain new abilities, strength as we fight them subsequent times, but I kind of wanted to get my ass kicked. But that said, I know a lot of people that were having a go at this did get their ass kicked that don't have the experience I do, so I do think this is more a veteran Monster Hunter problem than the game is actually too easy to start with problem, so that one might just be a little bit of a nitpick. The next one, which again may be more subjective than objective criticism, is stamina. This entirely could be because, you know, I'm obviously not great at the game, I've just started playing, and therefore don't know the best way to manage my stamina, because dodging, it feels pretty good to dodge, though I feel like a lot of the time you do get hit, or the monster has a lot of tracking, but I think you're supposed to use your karakuri to dodge more than you are your actual dodge roll. There's like springs that knock you out the way, or the towers that jump on, but in any case, it does feel like I am constantly starved for stamina. Like, it feels inhibitive, like I have to pause in the middle of the hunt and just wait for the regen so I can keep doing stuff. I think perhaps it might be that the game just expects a slower pace than I was treating it, a more deliberate approach, but I did find it a little bit restrictive, especially playing the bow, my favorite of the three weapons that I can show you guys. Though I will, again, admit that it entirely might just be a wrong approach or a wrong understanding, and as the game progresses and perhaps your stamina increases, maybe there's armor skills to do that, or, you know, however the skills are represented, improving your character, I have a feeling that that might ease off, but stamina management was definitely a big hurdle, but I can't say for sure if that's just objectively bad, or if you just need more experience and time of the game. The last and third one, I think, is definitely a more objectively, one of the reasons the bow ended up being my favorite weapon is when you're using a melee weapon against a big monster, big kimono, in this case King Tusk, the camera is kind of awkward. It feels like it's constantly buried in the kimono, and I think it would benefit a lot from being zoomed out an extra couple meters or so. It's not as bad against Ragetail and Sapscourge, the two smaller kimono that we got to hunt, but on King Tusk it's very noticeable how you just get constant just camera fulls of plant boar skin, and as much as I'm into that, you know what I mean, it definitely does make it harder to understand what's going on, and makes me really appreciate how well paced the Monster Hunter camera is, no matter what it is you're actually fighting, even when you get to the bigger stuff. So yeah, I definitely think the camera is a point of contention for the faster, more close-up melee weapons, but that's something that I think is easily addressable with just, you know, a literal zoom out, or just adding an option to the menu to let us adjust how far in or out we want our camera to be. But other than that, guys, the bottom line here is everything that I experienced is A, really fun, shockingly compelling, and so much more interesting than I had hoped from both an aesthetic world feel and a individual mechanic actual gameplay feel. B, it feels enough like Monster Hunter to be instantly familiar for anyone who has played Monster Hunter, without feeling too much like, well, that's just that from Monster Hunter, and that's just that from Monster Hunter, that's just that from Monster Hunter. I just feel like I'm playing a worse clone. It really does strive and stand on its own two legs, with both the uniqueness of the Karakuri mechanic, the uniqueness of the more open build-your-own-based world, the uniqueness of the plant-animal hybrids, and of course the setting and weapons definitely do differ it a lot. There is of course overlap, but it feels like its own creature, as opposed to, you know, a slightly altered clone, and that was one of the most important things. And then C, it's fun. And that's really the big question, right? It is fun. It's just fun. And I think ultimately it's definitely going to be a good time for anyone who likes Monster Hunters, anyone who likes action RPGs, and anyone who just likes exploring a very pretty open natural world and seeing what happens within it, and anyone who likes building perfect campsites with perfect aesthetics and hopes that you don't accidentally destroy your own stuff by unsheathing your weapon at the wrong time while stood next to your tent. I did that more times than I would care to admit. It's got a lot going for it, and as it stands right now, no, obviously it is not better than the game that has been mastered and refined and made utterly pinpoint near perfect over, 16, 17 years of iterations. But it certainly has huge amounts of potential, and quite frankly, I am excited to have what I consider a second hunting game to play that is genuinely really, really fucking cool. So we'll see what the future brings, we'll see what the rest of the game is like, how many kimono there are, and how they all operate. It might entirely be a case of everything that's good has been, focused here, and it might fall apart later, or it might only get better. All I can say is what I played as someone who obviously loves Monster Hunter and action RPGs and nature and how all of that comes together to make a compelling experience. I had a really good time, and I definitely give it the stamp of I am fully all in, I am excited, and I can't wait to see how this goes. For now then, like if you enjoyed this, let me know anything specific you would like to know about. There of course will be follow-up videos going over in detail specific elements of the game, the kimono, the weapons, the systems, but I just wanted to give you a kind of general overview, my thoughts having now played it, and whether you guys should be, well, properly interested or not. And I think, yeah, genuinely watch this space. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.